Before I begin, could we all mute ourselves? Thank you for attending the Southeast Interbranch Council meeting this morning. My name is Patty Ahern, and I am the chair this year. There are 9 branches that represent this council. Our speaker will be last on the agenda today. She had another commitment that popped up, and she is going through Washington, D.C. crosstown traffic to try to get here by 10:45 or 11. So we are going to do our business meeting first. By the way, I have been working on this speaker since last August. I'm hoping she will be here, and I'm hoping we can finally get to hear what she has to say to us, because she is from National. And it is nice to be able to hear someone representing National speak to us today. We will conduct our business meeting, and that will include the reading of the minutes if our secretary is able to get on, and also reports from the 9 branches. And we do have elections today for the chair and secretary. We only have 2 officers, so we only need to have 2 elections. I will forego our minutes for right now, since our secretary is not here to read them. Let me go into our reports. We can have those possibly finished before our speaker comes. If our speaker does show up before we are finished, we'll go ahead and finish those after she is completed her speech. We'll begin with Big Bear, and I do not believe Big Bear is here, and I did not get a report this time from them. I just got an email saying that she was not able to attend. I did not receive anything after that. We'll go on to our Ontario, or I'm sorry, we have Hemet. Hemet, I believe, is here. No, maybe not. I don't see Hemet yet. Okay, we'll go to Ontario. Ontario, Upland, Rancho. I know Joyce is here. Joyce, would you like to begin our reports today, please?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Patty. I will report that in April, we joined the Redlands branch for their meeting. We had a wonderful lunch there, and they had a fantastic speaker. We enjoyed ourselves very much that day. I will also tell you that we are back to all of our sections being in person, with the exception of the writers' workshop, and they're choosing to stay on Zoom so they can accommodate some of the out of area writers. The movie group is going to be meeting in person again this May. Our scholarship applications, the deadline was March 31st, but we didn't have very many applications this year for some reason. So we've extended it through to the end of this month, April 30th. And so far now we have close to 30 applications, which is very good. We'll be conducting our interviews within the next week or 2, and we'll make our selections prior to May 14th. We hope to give 5 or 6 scholarships this year, and May 14th is our scholarship tea fundraiser. And this year, all of our fundraisers for funds, the wine tasting in November, and now this one, our past 2 have exceeded our expectations. So we're certainly hoping that the scholarship tea on the 14th is going to exceed our expectations also. And lastly, our installation luncheon is scheduled for June 11th at Red Hills Country Club. We will be installing a treasurer, a membership chair, and hopefully a president-elect, which has not been chosen yet. So hope to have one by then. And again, that's June the 11th. And those are the highlights from Ontario Upland Rancho.
Patty, you are muted. Patty, I left a message for Kathy Hankins. Nobody answered.
Okay, well, it is recorded, so she can go on to the recording and hopefully be able to take the minutes for our last meeting this year.
Okay.
I would like to go to Anne Diamond Bar Walnut.
Okay, well, we have had kind of a hybrid method of meeting between Zoom and in person. Some of our groups, like Book Group, have managed to have a Zoom part as well as an in-person part going on at the same time. However, our general meetings have mainly been held by Zoom. We've had board meetings by Zoom, and we had a speaker, Hilda Solis, who is the LA County Supervisor that covers our area. She kindly provided time and gave us a talk about her life in politics and how, she got started and what her priorities are. One of our members, Rachel Kirk, is very well connected with her, and she invited her to come. And we recognize that this is one of the criteria of a 5-star branch, having an elected person speak at your meeting and ask them questions. So over the years, we've thought about it, what could we do toward a 5-star branch? So I know some of the other criteria have to do with membership retention, amount you donate, whatever, putting links on your website. And so we're trying to see if we can round up a few of the 5 stars. I don't think we'll make 5 stars, but maybe a couple. I figured that's at least a start. And I think that you submit that paperwork in June. One other thing, we do speech trek. We held our competition the end of January and sent our candidate on. They didn't win, but nevertheless, we held the competition, and I think it was really well received. One thing, some of us have been a member for more years than I would like to mention, and we've seen a lot of things come and go over the years. And I remember way back when, you had board members for each position, you had a folder, you had all the job responsibilities that each person was supposed to fulfill, and it was much more organized. Well, now our branch governing structure, we have the required president, secretary, and treasurer. Then we have 5 board positions. All of these positions are shared, I think, the board positions, but it's kind of like then the board takes over doing programs or whatever these other jobs were that used to be specified. Well, I think you might have met my co-president, Margaret Mahoney, last time. I'm really thrilled that she joined our branch and was willing to step up and take responsibilities. Anyway, she brought up this interesting idea. Oh, we need job descriptions. And it's like, oh yes, that would be good. So we've developed a form and sending it out to all the members to ask them to write down whatever memories they have about whatever jobs they've had and what the responsibilities were. How do you organize a room for the meeting for a speaker? What do you do to engage somebody to come and talk? What are the responsibilities of doing tech track, of speech track, of, out to lunch? We have hospitality. We have, many little functions that people just do, but they haven't really been recorded. So we're trying to develop that documentation. We did have a nominating committee, and unfortunately, we still have the same people. Well, I should say fortunately, because we like to have their commitment, but not too many new people. We really know that new members, getting new people to step up to jobs is so important to keep our branches vital. I mean, I myself have been a member since 1980. I'm a charter member at our branch. I can't tell you how many times I've been president, newsletter, I don't know, all these years. And I'm actually still working. And I really need other people to step up. So really, I can't keep doing this. So Margaret, I'm real thrilled, and Barbara Armstrong have really stepped up, and I really hope that they will take over. So we're having our elections in May, and then we'll have an installation in June. So we usually have a summer meeting, and that's maybe too long-winded, but that's what's happening in our branch.
Thank you so much, Anne, for sharing. I think a lot of branches are in your boat, and it's true with so many clubs and organizations. You're always looking for new members because you need new members to replace some of the members that are just plain tired. And I agree with you. It is nice to have some new blood circulating in our membership. Our next branch is Palm Springs, and that's Shelley Mitchell.
Hi, I just got back from a 2-week vacation last night, so I have no idea what's happening in our branch. But I know that we've had 2 in-person meetings, and we're having a 3rd one in May, and they've been really successful. We're also doing some in-person events, and the board is meeting in person in somebody's backyard, so it's really nice and outside and open. And we but the interest groups are still not online, are still on Zoom, and they like it that way, and they may just stay on Zoom because we have a lot of members who are snowbirds, and that way they get to keep participating even if they're in Michigan or wherever they go. Let's see what else. We are trying to have a few in-person events, and we kind of added it all up and noticed that different people come to events. We've had a picnic, we've had our branch meetings, we've had out to lunch, and we've had happy hours. And we get a good group at each one, but they're always different people. So we're going to try to keep planning different events that appeal to whoever they appeal to. We have the same issue with officers. We have a team of 8 that we each take being the president for 1 month. So I'm only the president in name. I'm not really the president. But they put my name on the form, so I get the emails. But in general, it's worked pretty well, and we're going to do it again next year. We have gotten several new members, and we've recruited 2 of them to join our team. So that's been really successful. We have a membership VP who is relentless. If you didn't want to get involved when you walked in the door of a meeting, you shouldn't have come, because she has you signed up for something, joining the branch, and participating before you know it. She's great. And the other thing was, we went to visit the president of College of the Desert, and she's thinking that maybe we can have our meetings on the campus. We bought our own microphone and projector, so we're all set for that. And she joined our branch too, so that's been really exciting for all of us.
Thank you so much, Shelley. I don't know what our branch would be doing without our University of Redlands being so supportive and being
Yeah, you
a
inspired us.
partner to us.
You inspired us.
Oh, we're glad to do it. Our pleasure. Our next branch is Redlands. Speaking of Redlands, Erica?
Yeah, there. I think we have 5 members here now. Sharon Beeler just joined. So I will review what we have done and where we are now. And I ask all of our, the 5 of you who are here to jump in if you have something to add. So we have been a very busy branch for this last year. I mean, it's been amazing. I didn't quite know what I was getting myself into when I agreed to run for president. But we have had, we've had live meetings on and off. We started out with having a live meeting, and then Omicron reared its ugly head, and so we went back to Zoom. But since March, I think we've had March and April, we had in-person meetings. Is that right, Kay? We didn't have one not in February. No, that was Zoom. But, even our live meetings, we have found a way of doing them hybrid, so that at our last meeting, I think we had about 40 people who were there live. And then we had an additional 8 or so people who joined on Zoom, because we've been able to figure out a way of doing it hybrid. And I think that's worked really well, because there are some people who just really haven't liked the Zoom format and still don't feel comfortable coming live. But we have done the last 2 branch meetings have been live. And so I think unless another variant appears, we'll be able to continue that. So this year, actually, our emphasis has been very much on diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. It seems as though our speakers, we have found speakers who all talk to that issue. Starting in, I think it was in January, the Twyla Evans Carthen from Cal State. She was the ombudsman at Cal State, and she did a great presentation. That was still on Zoom, but she did a great presentation about diversity, and particularly she emphasized to us that our chapter, our branch, is really full of baby boomers. That was the the highest category of age, and that diversity, really, we need to focus a little more on trying to get more diversity in our branch. That is racial diversity, ethnic diversity, age diversity. So that has kind of been a focus for us, and our speakers have been focused on that issue. Our March meeting, we had Dean Mario Martinez, who was the Dean of the School of Education at the University of Redlands, and he came and talked about diversity in their school. And in fact, a group of us went up and talked with him afterwards, and went and met with him to talk about how AAUW and the School of Education could actually work together to help diversify our branch, and for them to, I mean, we have scholarships that we can give to their school, or to not just women, but students from the School of Education. And we have, when he was there, I asked people to raise their hands in our our meeting, our group, how many people were either teachers or retired teachers. And I think about 2/3 of the gathering raised their hands that they were either current teachers or retired teachers. So we have a whole core of women who can be mentors to them at the School of Education, and they were very interested in that. And Dean Martinez invited us to send. There were 5 of us who went. This was just last week, to their annual awards dinner for the students, alumni, and faculty. And that was very successful. 5 of us went. Let's see. Sharon, who's here, she went, and I went. I don't see anybody else here who went. And we had an opportunity to really meet with and mingle with students and faculty, and to give out our cards, and to give out our brochures, and to talk to people about what AAUW was and what we do. And it was great because we got a lot of enthusiasm. I don't know how many people, if we actually got new members, but we did get a lot of names. So that was a very successful endeavor. Other things that we've done this year, it's been quite amazing. All of our interest groups are back, some of them meeting live, some of them not. And some of them, like our, our reading group, the Reading in the Rainbow, we're doing both. It's like every month we do at least one meeting that is virtual, that's on Zoom. And then we also get together live. The reading group, one of the most interesting things that we did this year was we had, what was her name? Susan Straight, who is, I don't know if you read her book, but it's a wonderful book called In the Country of Women. And she is a Riverside writer. And she came to the meeting, which was co-hosted by AAUW and the library, the Friends of the Library. And there was quite a big group there to hear her talk about her book. But one of the things that book, at least it did for me, was it made it clear that maybe one of the ways that we can find out more about who our membership is if we do a kind of storytelling thing. And that's an idea that we have for how to get our group more. So it means we need to know who we are before we can diversify, because we need to know exactly what we're diversifying from. We have a fair idea that there are a lot of us who are, aging women, but I think it would be good for us to really find a way to have everybody be able to tell their stories, so we know actually who we are. Anyway, so that's one thing that is happening. Other things we've done, we put on 2 STEM conferences this spring. One at the University of Redlands for Redlands, Yucaipa. Who else is in that besides Redlands and Yucaipa? Kay or Patricia. And then there was a second.
Well, we invited the Banning School District to the Redlands conference.
To the Redlands conference.
Yeah.
Okay. And because then we did one in another conference in Beaumont, which, was for the Pass area. And that one usually is done at San Jacinto College, but this year they were not allowing events on campus. So we did it at one of the junior high school, at one of the middle schools. And I think it was very successful. Both of those STEM conferences were extremely successful. as they are every year. I think the one in Redlands, we've been going for 28 years. And the one in Beaumont, we've been doing it for 24 years. So I don't know, other things we're doing, Speech Trek, which is Patty's baby. We had, initially we had 5 entrants, right? And then 2 dropped out and we had 3, but the winner, have they actually announced the state winners?
They have the top 5.
Yeah,
Our little gal didn't make it.
she didn't make it. Oh, but she's gonna come talk to us next month, right?
May 3rd.
May 3rd, right. We gave out 3, or we're giving out 3 scholarships to returning, we call it the Nancy Yao scholarships, named after one of our members who had been very involved in that, who passed away a few years ago. We're giving out 3 scholarships to returning students, and we're giving out scholarships to high school students. I'm looking here. We had 4 of our members who participated in Lobby Day. Patricia, you want to say something about that? You were in that, right? You have to unmute.
Lobby Day, I thought went very well. The coordinator had us all separately hooked up with someone to talk to, and I was on my own. I wasn't in a group. I think most of them were small groups of people. But I talked to Chad Mays's people about the bills that we are following and interested in. And it was enlightening. As he's in my area, so it was interesting to learn more about him. And I did Google him, and he's not at a good place in his life right now. So I'm not sure he's even going to run for re-election.
I think he's not.
Yeah, given what they're saying on the air in Google, it might be to his favor not to rerun.
We are doing the Luna Fest, which is a fundraiser. Luna Fest is a film. It's a film festival of short films that are made by women filmmakers, and it's Luna, the bars, the protein bars. That's the company that sponsors this, and that's going to be on May 13th. And let me see Kay, do you know, can people hear if they just go on our website, on the Redlands Branch website, and go to the newsletter? You can actually buy tickets to see it either online, or you can get live tickets, and that's being held at Esri, right, at the Esri Auditorium. It's nice. Last year we had to do our participation. We had to do it on Zoom. We had to do it online, but which was not bad. And you can still do it online. You can either buy an online ticket or a live ticket, but that's always been, it's a great fundraiser, but it's always a terrific event to go to. I've loved it for years. How many years have we been doing it?
I think about 7.
About 7 years. Oh, another thing that we haven't got it finalized right now, but there's an organization in Redlands that is putting on the Juneteenth celebration. And I think we are going to this is at Sylvan Park in Redlands, and we are going to have a booth or a table that it's an opportunity for us to expose ourselves, and I mean that in a positive way, to a more diverse, a diverse audience. Because as you all probably know, Juneteenth is the celebration of emancipation of slaves in the US. And it's now actually a national holiday. I didn't realize that until I got into trying to sign us up to have a table at this event, that as of last year, it was signed as by Biden as a national holiday. Okay, the one other thing before I guess I've gone on and on, but we are also trying to become a 5-star branch. And because we just knew that the Redlands branch was doing so much, and we felt that it was time to get recognized for everything that we've been doing. So we are applying to be a 5-star branch. And I think we're pretty close to having all of, checking off all the boxes. So I think that's all, unless any of my other members want to. Kay, yes.
In terms of LunaFest, if you go to our website, there is actually a menu item for LunaFest, and it gives you all the information and the link in order to buy tickets.
Good. So it's worth doing. It's, not only is it a good fundraiser for our branch, but it's a really great evening to go to. And in the past, I don't know if we're still going to do this, but in the past, the LunaFest, the movies are shown on a Friday, and we have had we've gotten together on a group gotten together on Saturday mornings to discuss the films, because there's no opportunity at the showing to discuss the films. Hey,
it hasn't been organized. So Erica, if you're interested, you want to organize something, send me the information. I'll send it to the branch.
Okay. And that might be a good thing to do on Zoom, that we could do a Zoom discussion group. So anyway, that's it for Redlands.
Well, that was quite a report, Erica. I might mention too that we must not leave the high school girls out. We do have a scholarship for each one of our 3 high schools that we give. It's a $500 scholarship. And we also give a couple of the scholarships to our continuation high school, Orangewood. So we have been doing that to help the high school students too. They do have to write an essay, but we have completed our picks and are very happy with our choices. And we will be giving those out in the 1st of June. I would like to go to Riverside. Unfortunately, Riverside has not been very active this year. I have talked to Amanda, who is the president this year, but she has not responded at all. I am not sure what Riverside is doing. I do have a friend that is a member, and she said they have not done much as far as she knows. So hopefully Riverside will be able to get back into growing their membership and being a great branch again. Temecula Valley, that is Bobby. Bobby, are you ready for your report?
You have to unmute, Bobby.
This is Betty Mathias. Bobby's on her computer at home, and she cannot speak, or you can't see her. And I don't have a report to give in her place.
Can she give the report verbally without being able to see her?
No, she can't. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry too. This is our second time not hearing from Temecula Valley. Perhaps Bobby, if she's up to it, can send an email to our secretary, Kathy, and she could include it in the minutes for the reports. That way we can see what Temecula is doing, because we'd like to perhaps participate in what they're doing. I do not see Victor Valley either. And I am curious, Patricia, what branch are you representing?
Upland.
Upland is here. Okay, so we have a good representation from Upland. Thank you for coming today. If that concludes our reports, I would like to go back over to Kathy, our secretary. And Kathy, you came in a little late. Our speaker is going to be speaking at the end of our meeting instead of at the beginning. So if you could read the minutes to us from our last time we met, please.
Sure, I can do that in just a minute. I want to apologize for coming in late. Our next door neighbor is 94 and had some issues last night. And we brought him back from the hospital today. So anyway, the minutes started with, these are the minutes of January 29th. Chair Patty Ahern began by asking this meeting to be available online to all interested. Priya Vidula will put it on YouTube and the Redlands Branch website. Patty Ahern noted that we have 9 branches in this Interbranch Council. She then reviewed the agenda and introduced guest speakers Janice Lee and Elaine Johnson, co-chairs of the California AAUW Committee to Advance Diversity, Equality, and Inclusion. Johnson and Lee spoke on the bigger picture of diversity, equality, and inclusion, giving a description of DEI and the steps to get started in each branch. The slide presentation is available from Chair Patty Ahern and on YouTube, and then there's the URL. A question and answer period followed. Ahern thanked the presenters for their good ideas for this very important part of AAUW. The minutes of October 3rd, 21 were approved as corrected. There was no treasurer's report. Then there are the branch reports. From Big Bear, Annette Stewart had submitted a report, so Patty Ahern read that. Their past and future events include annual holiday, party fundraiser, auctioning, they auction experiences. They've raised $4,000, for example, with a tamale making class, a tour of the local airport, the kayaking adventure for 4. Those were some of the experiences that they auctioned that raised the $4,000. They have a speech, track composition, competition, and scholarships. They have a literature group on Zoom, and the drama group planned a meeting, but electricity went out. As long as members are vaccinated and boosted, they feel safe getting together in small groups. The Hemet Jacinto branch is having difficulty holding meetings or events because they have a small membership. The branch's past and future plans include combining the board and general meetings monthly on Zoom, popcorn fundraiser, which is easy, but it's a little slow getting it together this year. Brunch at a home in December, that was just a brunch, no meeting. They participate in Tech Trek. The branch does not use Zoom to interview student applicants. Their new treasurer, Angelina, is a former scholarship winner. They have a fundraiser. They're anticipating being able to do this before the Ramona pageant again during the last week of the pageant. And they're planning a great decisions interest group. They are using Zoom, but it's challenging for the group. And they've discontinued restaurant fundraisers for now. The Ontario Upland Rancho branch, Joyce Paul, the president, reported that first, she noticed there were 6 branch members at that particular interbranch council meeting. The branch's past and future events include past November wine tasting, 1/3 of its membership in attendance, and the money raised exceeded the money raised in previous years. Christmas party was held in person, but all events and meetings as of that point in time were conducted in Zoom. A DEI committee has also been established. Shelley Mitchell reported for the Palm Springs branch, they're sharing the president responsibilities. Zoom versus in-person has been a challenge, but they don't have any place to hold in-person meetings. Their past and future plans include a brunch in January, a local presentation from Women Behaving Badly for Good in February, an upcoming meeting with the College of Canyon student AAUW branch. They're working on staying afloat and staying together. In Redlands, Erica Wilson reported their past and previous plans. All meetings are now on Zoom, which are going smoothly thanks to Priya Vidula. Previous meetings included a speaker on climate change with lively discussion. From fall 21 to December 21, they conducted monthly in-person brunches at the University of Redlands, alternating with a dinner meeting. Previous meetings also included a Footlighters Theater fundraiser. In November, they had a fundraiser, a holiday boutique, which raised a lot of money. In December, their speaker on diversity was Tula Evans Carter, Ombudsman Chairperson for Cal State San Bernardino. Their upcoming events include attendance at the Luna Fest. Their ongoing groups are the Racial Justice Reading Group, which may take over responsibility for the DEI committee, Great Decisions, I Am Therefore I Think, and Reading in the Rainbow. In conjunction with the Smiley Library, the Reading in the Rainbow group is sponsoring Susan Straight, who's speaking in person March 24th. Speech Trek will again be conducted this year. And with the University of Redlands, they'll hold a STEM meeting on March 2nd and March 26th for a STEM conference in Beaumont. The Riverside branch did not have any report. The Temecula branch was not in attendance. And Patty Ahern said to refer to the previous minutes for information on that branch. The Walnut Valley branch, there's a new co-president, Margaret Mahoney, with Ann Hamilton. They have 50 members. A few members are active. The branch's past and future plans include a December Christmas party, a fundraiser as part of the Diamond Bar Snow Festival. They've completed Speech Trek Week, held in conjunction with the Friends of Walnut Library. They did that in person and in Zoom. They have an active book club, an out to lunch group, and a current events group. Monthly programs or parts of programs will be developed by the DEI coordinator, and their newsletter needs a new editor. Victor Valley Branch.
Just that's Diamond Bar Walnut Branch, not Valley or whatever you called it.
I apologize. Diamond Bar Walnut.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make a correction. Victor Valley Branch, Janice Cook reporting. Their membership has been reduced. The branch has past and future events, which include December restaurant meeting. That didn't work. December fundraiser, they doubled the amount that they raised previously. Their last meeting had a speaker from the branch recounting her experiences as a woman of color in the San Bernardino County office. She's writing a book about this. They are working to increase membership. Announcements. Carol Ann Ford asked whether the April 30th meeting will conflict with the National AAUW meeting. Ahern explained that the Interbranch Council Zoom meeting is at 10 and the National AAUW program is at 1 p.m. SCBIC representative to the State Public Policy Committee, Shelley Mitchell, reminded attendees of the March 22nd virtual lobby day. All branch members are encouraged to sign up to meet with their own legislators. The state also has decided to work with the California Future of Abortion Council and will help sponsor a bill. In addition, there's someone at AAUW introducing a proclamation to celebrate the anniversary of Title IX. Kathy Kinley asked whether the legislator meetings will be set up like last year, and the answer was yes. Kathy Hankins asks whether the attendees would like to have an upcoming events document for circulating to branch members, collecting all SCBIC branch future fundraisers and events open to the public so that members could contribute and/or attend. The answer was yes. The meeting webinar was courtesy of the Redlands branch Vice President Priya Vedula. Meeting was adjourned at 11:45 a.m.
Thank you very much, Kathy. That was a great report. And we really appreciate all the minutes because they are recorded and you have gone the extra mile to be able to bring us such detailed minutes. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Are there any other corrections or additions to the minutes? If not, the minutes stand approved as read. I have not had a text yet from our speaker, so I would like to go into our elections because they are next on our agenda. Our elections include secretary and chair. Kathy would like to step down as secretary this year. She has a couple other commitments that are involving a lot of her time, and I really did not want to have her time so short that she could not continue doing a great job with us like she had been. So she is declining the position this year. And I do see a wonderful face online, and I am going to stop our elections and continue after our speaker has presented. Our speaker, thank you so much for being here. I kept looking at my clock, and there's not as many people here. And one of the reasons is this is not our normal time to have our meeting. It's usually the 5th Saturday, and we had to move it up because of the annual meeting for the state of California. So we have 14 people here that are very anxious to hear what you have to say, and we are recording it so that all the branches may be able to use it in the future. Robin. I feel like I know Robin personally. We have been talking for so long. Well, Robin is, I don't think I'm going to give too much of an introduction because her time and our time is valuable, but I would like her to tell you a little bit about her position, what she does at National, just to give us a little bit of an insight and introduction into what her profession is and how she serves us. Robin, go ahead.
Thank you for sharing that. And truly, if there's, one person on a call, I'm excited to speak with people, which is how Patty and I have gotten to know each other already. As long as I'm not speaking to myself, it's really exciting to see all of your faces and connect with y'all out in California. I'm Robin Litkus. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm the Grassroots Advocacy Manager, AUW National. I currently oversee the majority of our advocacy and public policy program, while our wonderful leader, Kate Nielsen, is on parental leave. And I've really had a joy the past 2 years working with the AUW community. Little background on myself, I did join right at the beginning of the pandemic. So while AUW has for decades and decades been used to the in-person exchange, my AUW experience and career has all been on Zoom. So this is normal to me. And one of my things that I like to start off with is just highlighting how I know a lot of us are really fatigued with Zoom, but I do not want anyone to forget how amazing the shift to virtual life has been for the accessibility of conversations like this. It's made it so much simpler and more frequent of an opportunity for me to engage with our members directly in smaller groups like this. And I think that value add cannot be overstated. So thank you for being a part of it. And I'm really excited to be here. That said, I do want to just kick off with a little bit of AUW policy overview. It's an election year. We're always working in public policy spaces. And one of the most frequent questions that we can get from members sometimes is the misunderstanding that AUW is like a community and education focused organization and not political. And that's just not the case. Like many of us here know, AUW is a nonpartisan organization, but we are very political. And the personal can be very political in this country. And our work since our foundation, nearly 140 years ago, itself was a political act in looking to support and ensure the access of education to women. Wasn't just political at that time. It was fringe, it was incendiary, it was unheard of for so many people in our communities. So we really like to keep that at the center of the public policy work that we do at AUW, of realizing all of our work can be seen as political, but itself is nonpartisan. And that has been since 1881, when the American Association of University was first founded. And to remedy this and other foolish notions, AUW led the charge to produce respected research to counter that kind of misinformation and encourage the importance of higher education for all of our children and all of our community members. I also want to say that our public policy principles, which I can share after this, a link is online, are well known to our membership, and they underscore this mission that AUW has to prioritize important issues. They are reviewed by you members and approved every 2 years. So the work that my team does at National is a direct mandate from that biannual election that is just about to kick off for our community. We take all of our direction from the public policy principles that are voted on and supported by members. And that's how we direct which positions we choose, which issues we take action on, how we take action on, and how we prioritize them. I will say, as an organization that is so expansive now, 140 years later, we're not just talking about education for women in higher education. We're talking about everything that impacts women and people in this country. So having those public policy principles to keep us, those priorities to keep us focused is really helpful to kind of narrow down our scope a little bit and make sure we're making the right impact on our communities. So that said, what are we working on right now? First, I'd like to take a moment to celebrate. We have had a win this year, and it is very exciting. The United States will finally benefit from the first Black woman to serve on the US Supreme Court. AUW participated in a nationwide, really incredible campaign to support the future Justice Jackson and her confirmation to the Supreme Court. And it has been a joy of mine this year to participate and like spearhead that entire campaign for AUW. We participated in a number of coalitions. We attended a national rally here in Washington, DC. We supported letter writing across the country, phone calls, anything that we could do to get you as members and advocates clued in and engaged in this, and provide as many opportunities as possible. But I just want to say, like, it's nice to be able to start a call with our community here in something that is positive, because so much of my job as a public policy person is to say, okay, here are all the fights and how we have to work on things. So it's nice to have a breath of fresh air here, and be celebratory. That said, my main focus right now is the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. We know that there are a number of federal laws and state laws on the books protecting pregnant people at work. However, many pregnant people are still at risk in the workplace and being forced out of the workplace simply for following their doctor's orders. This can look like something as big as, okay, you're pregnant now, we don't want you to work at all, or something as little as restricting someone's access to the bathroom or water breaks, which, as we all know here, that is pretty critical for a pregnant person and their unborn child. So working on closing those loopholes in federal law is what the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act is focused on. And we work in a national coalition of organizations and then support on a state level, our state AUW branches engaging on their level and connecting the grassroots side of things, you as advocates, to your elected officials to get this passed. The Pregnant Workers Fairness Act has been circulating in Congress every session, and it is bipartisan every session. It is bipartisan this session. It truly is one of the most no-nonsense, logical pieces of legislation I've ever seen in my life. So it is very frustrating that it hasn't happened yet, but we are here to make 2022 the year that it passes. Very related to that, we are all mostly familiar with the compensation protections in this country are equally taken advantage of through loopholes in federal law. So the Paycheck Fairness Act is our other key focus this year. Those protections are manipulated through loopholes, and that perpetuates the gender pay gap. We all know it's past time to ensure that equal pay is a reality in this country. So just to say, the Paycheck Fairness Act continues to be a key focus of our legislation strategy. That said, it is also an election year, so I know folks probably want to ask questions about how to get involved with voter registration and voter education. I will say that the latter, voter education, is where AUW excels. The amount of information on our website, the amount of education and expertise within our membership, like folks like you, to speak to specific issues and bring their lived experiences to different issues when talking with fellow voters, is incredibly valuable, and I highly recommend focusing on that strategically. There are so many issues that are misunderstood that AUW works on, equal pay included. There are a lot of people who don't understand that the gender pay gap does still exist and does still harm people. So your value as a member of the AUW community and as an advocate in the voter education space is really valuable. So there are ways that you want to get involved with that. Please reach out. I'll include my emails in the chat at the end of this when we're in the Q&A section, so that you know how to get a hold of me directly. But I will say, like, that is one of the best value adds for your community if you're looking to get involved in nonpartisan electoral politics this year. And the last thing that I want to highlight to keep an eye out for, this week, there will be a webinar shared. You'll receive an email as a member about an upcoming public policy webinar that I have been working with our board level public policy committee to organize around student debt. Again, similar issue area that there are a lot of misconceptions. So we specifically created the upcoming webinar to address those misconceptions and really answer some hard questions where folks just don't know a lot of the information around student debt, because while our research around student debt and equal pay are both really valuable, sometimes it's a lot to read. So we've invited 2 partner organizations to join us, and that email will probably go out on Tuesday. But just wanted to flag that for your upcoming week. It will be on May 3rd at 4 p.m. Eastern. So May 3rd in the morning for everyone with you. And I hope to see you there if you're curious about the student debt crisis in this country. And then I wanted to end, Patty and I talked about your specific community in the California area and kind of personalizing this a little bit so that you can understand what I talk about when we're looking at action alerts online and what that then does. Because I know as an activist myself, sometimes clicking a link and filling out a form and sending a letter to my elected officials makes you feel good, and it is a really important thing for you to do. But then you wonder like, oh, what did that just do though? Like, where did it go? How is that helpful? So I looked at California overall, didn't zero it in just on your localities, but in your state last year, the 2-minute activist tool that AUW runs, more than 11,000 people participated, took part as activists. And from that, more than 16,000 letters were sent to elected officials. I will say the state public policy chairs that you have in California are both incredible leaders, and they do some state level advocacy as well as the federal advocacy work that I run. So that includes both of them. That is Kathy, Sue, and I. But I'm really proud of those numbers. It is not surprising given the size of your state, but also the makeup, that you are one of the most active states at AUW. So round of applause and thank you for being a part of that. And I do want to end here on, while many of you are in localities within your state where your elected officials may seem friendly to our issues, and another common response I'll get is, well, my senator, my representative already supports this. Like, I don't need to send an email. I don't need to contact them. That's not actually the case. They need to hear from you because they need to know that they're doing a good job. I know I like to know if I'm doing a good job. Like, don't you? But especially as an elected official, they need to keep track of the pulse of their candidates or their constituents, so that they know that, like, oh yes, I am doing what the majority of my constituency supports. So you reaching out to a supportive elected official, say for Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, if it's someone who's sponsoring it already, send them the message through the 2-minute activist and say thanks. It really goes a long way. And I will say, with friends of mine and family who work with elected officials and are the ones reading those emails, it really helps the staff too. I mean, it is really impactful and an important part of your participation in the whole political process in our country. So just my plug on, even though you're in a friendly area, still write a letter or make a call. That said, I mostly, on calls like this, especially of this size, I prefer to leave a little bit more time for Q&A and conversation. So that is my presentation for today on general summary of our focuses, but I'm really curious to hear what you want to hear more about. If there's another topic I didn't mention, let me know. But I am happy to be here with y'all.
Thank you so much, Robin. And I know we probably have some questions. It's our opportunity to finally be able to talk to a national representative to answer some of our questions. Are there any questions for Robin at this time? Erica?
Unmute. There we go. I was curious about what kind of legal advocacy, what the Legal Advocacy Fund is currently working on. If there are cases that are, being addressed under the legal advocacy umbrella, and because we just had our policies and procedures meeting yesterday where we're going over our policies and procedures, and we had some questions about legal advocacy and whether it should go under public policy, whether it should go under fundraising, what are the current legal advocacy focuses. So is that something you could talk to?
I can definitely direct you to it. I don't manage our LAF, the Legal Advocacy Fund. I know that here's the general website. So the current cases are the second link on the right on the website I just linked y'all to. We do have, I think there are 4, 5, 6, there are multiple. There are several cases that we are supporting, but how to designate that in your, like you're saying, fundraising versus advocacy, et cetera. I can't really speak to that exactly, but I would say it's more of a fundraising space. And if there are more questions, you can send your direct question about it to advocacy@AUW, and I'll connect you to the person who's currently overseeing it. But the Legal Advocacy Fund is usually run by my manager, like the director, Kate Nielsen, who's out on leave right now. So it's being sub-managed by someone else in the organization. So it's definitely the area I know the least about, unfortunately.
No, because we were very, we were wondering, how the legal advocacy, how you decide on the cases, how the different branches can get involved in other ways besides just raising money and sending it into what sometimes feels like the sinkhole of the national.
I can respect that perspective. I will say that I think that the fundraising portion and just keep like learning about what the cases are is probably the most engagement opportunity, because it is like our staff attorney who is a big part of the selection process with our board, because it is a pretty stringent selection process. And then from because it's legal, it's not something that you don't advocate around a court case. So it's kind of more of an adjacent space. But if there are more questions, I'm happy to direct it to the person who can answer it for you.
I had a question. Ann Hamilton here. I'm from Diamond Bar Walnut. I appreciate what you said about being an advocate for the Paycheck Fairness Act or student debt, and how we can help sway opinion by storytelling or providing some insights to alleviate misunderstandings. And I know I maybe you have some examples on the website, or I just need to educate myself more about it. But are there sort of elevator speeches, or do you have some sort of information that would help us in these conversations?
Absolutely, it's a great question. So if you're on our website, along the top, there's a bar, like 3 options. And the first is explore the issues. So truly looking at whichever topic you want to talk about, and just kind of familiarizing yourself, I think is the best way to figure out which of the nuances hit closer to home for either yourself or who you're speaking to. And from there, it's a practice makes perfect. I mean, I will say, as I'm a community organizer first and grassroots advocacy person first. So my comfort space and where I'm very well practiced is in the storyteller space and helping fellow advocates learn how to be a storyteller. So I think that is my number 1 piece of advice, is to read up on it, and you can use our website for that, and then just see which of the facets of that topic really strike true to you, to focus the most on. And from there, I mean, the pages can seem a little clunky, but once you read it, you're like, oh, if I just this is the intro, I can ignore that paragraph. They themselves are like a 2-minute read. So you could practice that as, like you're saying, an elevator speech about the topic. When it comes to storytelling itself, we don't really have a storyteller bank program at AUW. But what I have been looking at is partnering closer with some of our coalition partners who do on different topics. The first one being the student debt webinar that we'll be hosting in 2 weeks. One of our partners through that has a full storyteller bank around student debt that is incredible. It's one of the reasons why I selected them to join the webinar. So they would be someone, if you wanted to read a little bit more storyteller content around it to give context so that you can share that with folks to help with that thinking shift, they would be who I'd send you to for student debt. And then with other topics, I have other really great recommendations. So if there's a topic that you're like, I want to talk about this at an upcoming branch meeting or a dinner with family or friends, and just wanted some advice on storytelling or where to look, please reach out to me. I love giving recommendations for that kind of engagement. As a public policy professional, I know that the traditional avenues of phone calls and letter writing and interacting directly with your elected officials clearly very important. However, as a grassroots advocacy person, my priority is that community and culture shift, the thinking shift, I think is honestly way more critical at the current state of our country. We all need to have these personal, direct conversations with people to help contextualize these issues that a lot of times is so emotionally charged and so data heavy that folks just get overwhelmed by it and are like, no, that's not my problem. I don't want to talk about it. So having that direct conversation with like my aunt or like a sibling of yours or something like that's definitely more helpful and can have a direct immediate impact on how someone thinks about something like equal pay or student debt.
Thank you.
Clearly, this is my area, so I'd love to talk about it whenever you want to talk to me.
Are there any other questions? I have one that has been bothering me. And our mission states that AAUW advances equity for women and girls and through advocacy, education, philanthropy, and research. I know that we worked so hard to get Title IX passed for women and girls. And it has been going along very well until recently when women are having to compete against biological men. And it just doesn't seem fair to me, but I'm curious to know what are we doing now? Are we going backwards from our Title IX that we worked so hard to get passed and signed into law? Or what are we doing?
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked that question. It's definitely an issue area where, much like student debt, there's a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding in the space, and is definitely one of like the top topics that I am focused on with that culture and thinking shift. So the next webinar after the student debt one, so in June, we will be hosting a webinar about Title IX and trans student rights. So specifically around that area, so AUW does engage in Title IX and then Title IX adjacent advocacy. This does include advocacy around the LGBTQ community, and in this case, specifically the transgender community. As a policy, AUW supports equal access to education, workplace, everything for all women and genuinely all people. But in this case, trans women are women, so that's in the women's space. So I will say, like, I understand the information that is out there that talks about this medical or scientific difference between people who are assigned male at birth, so trans women, and how they are different from people who are assigned female at birth, or like, you know, cisgender women. And I will say that, like, unfortunately, that's incredibly biased and like incorrect research. So in that space itself, I would say, like, I can share some more papers and the counter argument to that kind of claim. And with that, I would also say that there are biological differences amongst women assigned female at birth. So I don't really ascribe to the understanding of like, well, if you're assigned male at birth, you biologically have some kind of step up from me in playing soccer. That just isn't exactly the case. So in that space, to me, access to education, access to joining sports for people of all genders is important and is healthy for everyone. So keeping anyone of any gender back from accessing their sport is an inequity that we don't want to allow to continue. So in our space, yes, we do advocate for the ability to join a sports team according to your gender, and that includes trans women.
Would it be easier to resolve the issue if we put transgenders into a category of their own through competition?
I don't think so, because that means that you're segregating them off on their own instead of like, you're a trans woman, you're a woman, why not compete with other women? To me, it's the same as like, if I wanted to compete with women, like I'd be on a women's team. So trans women are women is the answer.
Biologically, are they?
Biological is a scientific and cultural designation that our society currently follows and society evolves. So that those definitions change and that definition is no longer applicable. Like
So
it evolves.
Is there a certain testosterone level? Remember, there was that one woman who was cast, or whatever her name was. They were going to bar her based on her abnormal testosterone levels, or, you know, I don't know. It's
I understand I think that humans in general, like we have a natural inclination to put people into labels and have our groups. I mean, it is just very natural instinct. So to set some definition on testosterone on like who's a woman based off of that, again, I think is an abuse of our understanding of science that is just unnecessary in our society. If I naturally have high testosterone, does that mean I have to compete with men like that? I just don't really think that is applicable. It's more your identity. If you're a woman and you want to be on a woman's team, then you should be on a woman's team. And if you're a man and you want to be on a man's team, then you should be on a man's team. And that is the bottom line, is like trans women are women, so they want to be on women's teams.
Patricia?
Patricia did.
I know, you know, in the past, there's always been a variation of testosterone, estrogen levels among athletes, and we never took that and did anything with it. Now we're all focusing on it in a strange way. But what I'm wondering, Robin, is if you have some things you would suggest that we read, or send Patty a reading list.
Absolutely.
I would love to know more on the topic, and I don't know as much as I'd like to.
Absolutely. That's what I was saying. It's like, I am really excited that folks want to expand their reading. And, you know, I personally like to challenge my thinking consistently because as humans and as society, we do evolve and, you know, things change. So it's really helpful to do that. So I would love to share some really helpful resources. And it's great because I'm doing all of this work, pulling it all together for the webinar in June too. So in June, we have two groups joining us. The Women's Law Project will be joining it to bring some Title IX expertise from a legal standpoint. And then GLSEN, which is the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Equality Network, has been around since the, I think, late 80s. GLSEN will be joining to share the perspective for trans student rights. And both of them will also bring a lot of resources. So that'll be in June, and I really look forward to having that. But in the meantime, happy to also share some helpful links for y'all to read, leading up to it a little bit.
I really think that a lot of this is because this opportunity to be transgender is now occurring among younger age people, where in their prime as an athlete. I mean, when you think about Caitlyn Jenner as Bruce Jenner, decathlon champion, as a man, you know, if she had become a woman in her youth, I mean, would have been quite the athlete, you know, so it really is something that has occurred, I think, recently because of the younger age of becoming transgender.
Yeah, I mean, I think that as a society, we also all are getting access to better health. You know, it's hard in this country to access healthcare, but generally, what healthcare is out there and available has evolved, and that has helped, particularly in athletics. I mean, athletes, especially professional or competitive athletes, have access to really great healthcare a lot of the time, and that again is regardless of gender. So to me, that all contributes to someone's ability to perform as an athlete. For me, the answer to the question always comes back to identity, not biology and not science. It's who you are. I mean, these are other humans, and as a human, like my sibling is telling me she's my sister, and I want her to then be able to be on the soccer team that she wants to be on with women. And that has nothing to do with biology.
I totally am in accord with your view, Robin, on these issues and the rights that people have as human beings. I think the thing that Patty has brought up and other people are concerned about is that these records are all of a sudden not able. I mean, the swimmer has just broken all these records because, this is a very tall person, physically different than biologically born women, and that the advantages that she has now as a woman, although this person was a very good swimmer as a man as well, but now, the best a woman born as a woman can do is come in second. So, I think that that's an issue to be dealt with as well.
Absolutely. So helpful thing that will definitely be included in my follow-up. And I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about this with fellow AUW folks here. So thank you for asking the question, Patty, because I know this is the kind of question and issue area that some people are like, I'm too nervous. I'm nervous to ask the question and I don't know how to ask it. And I mean, personally, like even the words we're supposed to use and that are currently accurate in society is so hard to keep up with for myself. And I'm in it 100%, 150% of the time. So I appreciate the chance that y'all are opening here. I know that it is really tough to think of. So I know that one of the words to use that people seem to be tripping over is what someone was born as versus now. So the general phrasing that is recommended from myself is assigned female at birth or assigned male at birth. Because again, all of this, when you're born, what gender you're assigned is up to the doctor and society and like what that designation is. So just a like quick little aside. And then I would, as I challenge myself around different ways of thinking, and I'm a big fan of like metaphors and how to challenge my brain on approaching it from someone else's perspective. One of the helpful thought shift exercises that I'd recommend with this space is apply your understanding of the current issue with transgender athlete and student rights and sports and all of that to Title IX itself. The history of Title IX and the history of AUW and access to education, where when AUW was formed 140 years ago, it was common knowledge that higher education would make a woman infertile, or education would make her dumber or a worse wife, and a lot of ridiculous things that all of us, like I see nods, I see just like, what? Like, we all know that was reality. Similarly, when Title IX was first formed, access to sports was restricted for women. Access to sports, workplaces, healthcare, lots of things were also restricted for people of color. Like a lot of this is with how, again, our human society likes to give people classification and we all stick together. It's the caveman brain in us of our natural instinct to group together and then other. And this to me is the new Title IX. This is the new evolution of Title IX, is to make sure that everyone can access their sports and their education in a safe workplace, regardless of their gender and regardless of how they were assigned a gender. So I would just say like noodle a little bit on that kind of reframing in your head on like, what would have been like, I have to think what would have been like, 40 years ago with gender or race, or for all of us 140 years ago when our current level of education would have made us social pariahs. Like, it's just how society evolves. So I think that this is one of those areas that makes a lot of us have preconceived notions, what we've been told by other people, and then content that we read from what we think are trusted sources, where a lot of this like biological difference space is, where there are people with medical degrees who are writing this. You're like, well, they're a doctor. I want to trust doctors, but I'm telling you that what that doctor is writing is not, there are some doctors out there that are not right. So not everyone is correct, even though they have the education. So I just like continue to challenge yourself on that. But I'm very happy to have this conversation and then share some follow-up research and organizations to follow.
Well, thank you very much. I knew you would be the one to ask.
I can tell you right now, if y'all, do you have a book club in your branches? Do you want to have a book recommendation?
Sure.
Well, I'm a huge, I read books voraciously. So this is not an AUW endorsement. This is just Robin Lucas. I know this is a recorded session. This is not AUW endorsed. However, this is Robin Lucas endorsed. This is also not AUW endorsing using Amazon. This is just the first link I found for it. But I recommend this book by Sarah McBride. It's called Tomorrow Will Be Different: Love, Loss, and the Fight for Trans Equality. I will also give a disclaimer here that I grew up with Sarah. Sarah and I met when we were young teenagers in youth and government. We did the YMCA program, teaching kids how to write legislation, and we pretended like we were senators. So Sarah and I did that together when we were young and went to nationals together. And now Sarah is a state senator back home in Delaware, where we're from. So great book, great human. She's lovely. And the way that she writes about it is, from my perspective, when I work in any equality spaces, the number one place that I'm speaking from and thinking from is compassion. And that applies to whoever I'm speaking to. If they agree, they don't know what I'm talking about, or they disagree with me, all of it's about compassion and making sure that we understand and support each other. And Sarah's book is very similar.
Thank you so much. Did you have a question, Erica? You're on mute.
I didn't catch what Sarah's last name is.
McBride.
McBride.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm so glad I had a book right off the top of my head. Yes.
Oh, I thought I'd see a couple more hands up. Let's begin with Joyce and then go to Kathy.
With abortion becoming such an issue, front and center issue with what the states are doing and what the Supreme Court may be doing this summer, I was wondering if National had concerns about losing members because of people who feel that because of their beliefs, they can't support AUW in supporting a woman's right to choose.
A great question, Joyce. Yes, whenever we take a very public, very engaged stance on an issue that is very sensitive to folks, much like the trans women, trans athletes' rights space, it is always a conversation and a part of the thought process on like, how is this going to impact our membership? So like I was saying at the very beginning, we take our mandate from the public policy priorities and how that directs us. So the women's right to choose, I believe, has been a part of public policy priorities for, I think, well over 30 years. And I know that AUW has been involved longer than that, but like it has been written in stone since then. And it is the phrase women's right to choose. So there's no question, there's no equivocating. There's just how to, in polite mixed company kind of engagement approach with it. So I will say that AUW has never changed that stance, but how often we engage can change. So what I will say is from a national standpoint, yes, we have been engaging a lot more. We've been engaging a lot more actively and aggressively because of trends nationally. but states then have the authority and autonomy to decide how much they want to engage on a state level. It's totally up to states. But yeah, I mean, losing this to some folks who see this as a violation of their beliefs. I mean, that to me, that makes sense. If an organization doesn't align with your beliefs and you don't believe in it, then unfortunately, I think that means that you and that organization don't agree. And while that socially might be a little painful because you have a lot of friends in that organization, it's a person's personal prerogative on if they want to be a part of an organization that they don't agree with everything 100%. But unfortunately, the state of the access to abortion care in this country is plummeting very quickly and in a very scary way. So AUW is going to engage because access to abortion care and reproductive health care in general is directly linked to a woman's economic security and ability to function in our society in this country. So there isn't any way for us to back off.
And you could say that some of us wouldn't continue to be a member of AAUW unless AAUW did support abortion rights. So, I mean,
You're right, Anne. I more frequently get that email where it's like, why are we doing this all the time? Like,
yeah,
I know we have to focus on a lot. And thankfully there are organizations out there that expressly focus on abortion access. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Anne. If we didn't do it, we would also lose probably a lot more members, to be honest.
Kathy, I believe you're next.
I have sort of a general question. I was just in Washington last month with Delta Kappa Gamma, which is a group of women educators, and AUW cooperates when we do our national legislative seminars. So I want to thank AUW for that. And the one thing that we need to just keep reminding ourselves is that we have to keep communicating. Some of us are going to get new members of Congress because of reapportionment. So even if you've been friendly with your current member, and I had a really good session with staff members for Senator Alex Padilla, and he's quite new to us as a U.S. Senator. So it's important that we be constantly in contact with his office. A good session with his education staff person, student debt, of course, being one of our issues that falls in that line. So I just really want to thank you. And I know it is hard, some of these sensitive issues, and we're going to have some differences of opinion, but we continue to tell our stories. And I think if you look at our normal policies statements, these are issues that we need to address on behalf of girls and behalf of women. So just want to thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Kathy. You're absolutely right. And that is a nuance that I talk about frequently when I focus just on election, but I missed saying today, so thank you for sharing it. This is the first election for most localities. Some had special election stints, but for the most part, with redistricting after the 2020 census, this is the first, like, in every state there will be elections this fall with the midterms since redistricting and since the new census. So this is going to be an interesting election for many people who are now in a completely new district for a lot of elections. Yeah, important to pay attention.
Are there any other questions for Robin? Wow, that was a great session.
Thank you for all of your questions. I really appreciate your engagement. This is really wonderful, and I am here. Please email me if you have questions about specific issues like you raised today, or you want to learn more about it. And I really look forward to engaging with all of your branches more as the year goes on.
Well, thank you so much, Robin. Thank you for being with us here today. We were very privileged. We felt very good about having somebody so informative speak with us today. And I hope
for being invited.
I hope we can feel very comfortable emailing you now, since we feel like we know you on a personal basis. And if we do have any more questions or any concerns, we can email you, and hopefully, and I know you have a busy schedule, you'll be able to email us back. And I hope that all of us will take the information that we have back to our branches today.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for having me. I hope you have a great rest of your Saturday, and I hope there's some sunshine out where y'all are too. We finally have a good day here. It's been winter all year, so we're relieved to have some sunshine. But I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for being
Bye.
with us. We appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I'd like to continue now quickly with our elections. I just had mentioned before Robin came on with us that Kathy would like to step down as our secretary. So we need to elect a secretary. Are there any nominations from the floor for secretary? Well, we have until October to find one. We'll hope that somebody will step forward and be our secretary for the future. If there are no nominations, we will continue on then to our chair. And our chair this year was me. So are there any nominations for from the floor for the 2022-23 chair? Erica?
I would like to nominate you to continue as chair, if you will do it.
Are there any other nominations? I will decline if there are any other nominations. If there are not any other nominations, I will stay in this position. So we will close the nominations for chair. Is there a motion to close the nominations?
I so move.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, thank you, Pat. Patricia. Well, by a show of hands, please raise your hand if you would like to vote yes for Patty Ahern as your chair. Well, thank you. I have some ideas in mind for next year, so I'm glad I can continue with you. But between now and our first meeting in October, which will be October 29th this year, I hope to have a secretary because it's so important that we have a secretary. And since all of our meetings are recorded, all they have to do is get on and just listen to what is being said and then just write down whatever you hear. And I would like to thank Kathy for being, she was awesome. It's gonna be hard to step in and take her place, but I know we can find someone that will eventually. And Kathy, you enjoy your new endeavor. And we hope to see you with us next year, even though you will not be our secretary. We'd like to have you still attend the meetings. Are there any announcements? Well, I'm glad we had Robin here today. It was hard to believe I actually saw her because we've been doing emails and texts back and forth, but I have never met her in person or saw what she looked like. She's much younger than I thought she was. And I didn't think she would have that color of hair. But I so appreciated her being with us today. And I think she gave us a very good idea of what they are doing at National and what we can do to continue with our mission. If there are no other announcements, then I will adjourn this meeting till October. I will see you then.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patty.